This flower is responsible for an economic collapse. No, seriously, this flower took part in one of the oldest and most infamous market crashes ever recorded and left rich, powerful elites completely penniless overnight. It has been studied by universities, modeled by social psychologists, and is used as a cautionary tale by economists for centuries about the dangers of speculation and the madness of crowds while investing. So what am I talking about? What is this flower? And how did it play a role in one of the craziest tales of greed and speculative frenzy the world has ever seen? To answer these questions, we need to go back to 17th century Holland, where the latest trend everyone couldn't stop talking about was a tulip. You see, in 1593, a newly appointed botany professor from Vienna went on a trip to Turkey and came back with a collection of unusual plants. These plants, now known as tulips, were so unlike the typical flowers seen in Holland that the Dutch became fascinated with them and were willing to pay a good price to get them into their gardens. Fast forward a couple of decades, and the tulips have become a popular, yet relatively expensive decoration in many people's homes. However, something big was about to be discovered that would turn this flower from a pretty decoration into a lottery ticket. For whatever reason, some of these tulips started to get infected with a virus known as mosaic. While mosaic was non-fatal, it would cause the tulip petals to develop these intricate patterns of colored stripes never seen before in flowers like these. It was so rare and so unique that the Dutch started valuing these infected flowers much more than the regular ones. It got to a point where the stranger your flower looked, the more it was worth. And slowly, the craze over these tulips, now referred to as tulipmania by economists, set in. Just as clothing manufacturers try to gauge upcoming fashion and color trends, flower merchants started to try and predict the color and pattern of flower that would be most popular and started to stockpile them as they anticipated for the prices to rise. And rise they did. As the prices started to get higher and higher, people started to view the flowers as smarter and smarter investments. Charles Mackay, a famous author from the 1800s, chronicled the event in his book, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, and he wrote how everyone from nobles to farmers to mechanics and to maids started to speculate and dabble in trading tulips. Just when people couldn't imagine the prices of tulips getting any higher, they would rise yet again, leading to enormous profits by investors. The prices of these tulips were rising to such an absurd level that in the height of the craze, people started bartering personal possessions like jewelry, furniture, and even their houses in exchange for their hands on these tulips. One of the funniest stories to come out of this tulip craze was a sailor who had returned to Holland with a shipment of new goods for the merchant he worked for. To celebrate, the merchant hosted him for dinner. As he was eating, the sailor grabbed from the counter what he thought was an onion and ended up eating a Semper Augustus tulip bulb that was worth thousands of dollars in today's money. Needless to say, the merchant freaked out and had him imprisoned for months on a felony charge. While the story is pretty hilarious, it shows us just how absurdly high these prices got. The sailor ate a flower that was worth the same as a house. And while it took decades for prices to rise high enough to where that flower was worth a house, it only took a couple of months in 1637 for prices to plummet down to the floor. Out of nowhere, prices started to drop, panic started to set in, and these flowers that people were sacrificing everything for became worthless, obliterating people's finances in the process. But what happened to cause the prices of tulips to drop so quickly and so dramatically? Well, the thing is, what happened back in 17th century Holland with some tulips is no different than what happened during the Great Depression, the 2008 financial crisis, or any other huge market collapse throughout history. Not only are they linked by one common process, but once you know how this process works, you could spot the signs of a potential market crash a mile away. So what am I talking about, and what are the signs that a market crash is coming? To answer that, we first have to explain financial bubbles. A financial bubble is an economic cycle that is characterized by the rapid inflation of the market value of an asset, followed by a quick decrease in value or contraction that is often referred to as a crash or burst. In simple terms, a bubble happens when the price of a good rises ridiculously above the item's real value, followed by a huge drop in price as people come back to their senses and realizes that the prices are out of hand. It is a ticking time bomb that leaves those still invested in the asset financially devastated when the timer goes off. And as you have probably been able to piece together, what happened with the tulips in the 1600s was very clearly a bubble. Not only that, but it was the first ever financial bubble recorded in history. From the tulip bubble all the way to the dot-com bubble, what all these events have in common is the inevitable burst that takes the optimistic investor and turns them destitute in a matter of days. And that fear of being swept up in a financial bubble as it bursts is definitely real and definitely scary. There are all too real stories of everyday people like you and me, losing everything purely by just trying to invest in something they think will make them some more money for their family. It is a devastating and sad story that happens time and time again, usually to people who can't afford to lose. However, the good news to all of this is that these bubbles are predictable. If you learn anything from this video, hopefully it is that bubbles are a positive feedback loop fueled by the madness of crowds. People take interest in some sort of trend. This interest causes prices to rise. The rising prices causes more interest, and the cycle continues until the prices get so out of hand that it becomes unsustainable. But that's not all. Every financial bubble goes through the same 5-phase process that you can learn how to spot. By knowing these phases, you can protect yourself by seeing the signs of a bubble early on and steering clear at all costs. So what are these phases? Well, the first phase of any bubble is the displacement phase. This is when a new product, trend, or asset comes to the market that starts to generate interest. Next comes the boom phase, where the initial interest gains momentum, which starts to convince more and more investors to get into the market. There is an overwhelming feeling of FOMO in this stage that causes more and more people to jump in as they are scared of missing out on something big. Third is euphoria, where all caution is thrown to the wind and people use the initial boom to justify ungodly prices. Common in this stage is the greater fool theory, which is the belief that no matter how ridiculous the prices get, there will always be someone else out there willing to pay more. A greater fool, if you will. Phase 4 is the profit-taking stage. This is where the prices start to get so high that those who snap out of the craze realize what is going on and sell off their positions, making enormous profits in the process. The fifth phase is panic, where people start to notice others selling off their inventory, leading to doubt in these extraordinarily high prices. This causes panic as people try to get rid of all their inventory as fast as possible. And this, in turn, causes prices to drop as fast as they rose, leaving people still holding onto the asset screwed. Knowing this 5-phase process that bubbles go through can really save your ass if you are questioning investing into a financial or economic trend. The only problem is that not all financial bubbles are as easy to spot as tulips. So, if you're interested in learning about a modern financial bubble and its impact, check out this video here about Japan's economy that goes over their own asset bubble that plunged the country into a decades-long recession. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.